All right, a-holes, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, a movie that for some reason a ton of people really don't like, and I really don't know why. This, I think, is as good as the first one. I don't understand the problem, and I love the first one. Like 5 out of 5. I don't get the issue with this movie. I think it's fucking awesome. So I talked to plenty of people who are like, wasn't big on it, or outright didn't like it, or some even hated it. I don't know. I think maybe because the first one was so loved that their expectations got the best of them, and no matter what they were delivered, they wouldn't have liked. But I don't know what the issue is here. You have Kurt Russell in the movie as one of the main characters, as the main antagonist, obviously, as it's revealed later to be. Instantly cool. And that opening where he's driving around with his little river lily and he's young again, the de-aging here on Kurt Russell. I know Kurt Russell. Like, one of my favorite actors of all time, has been in some of my favorite movies ever. I know what Kurt Russell looks like young. He looks like he does in this movie. And it's incredible to see. And that whole sequence where he's, having his little romance with Peter's mom and all that, and then to find out what he did later is so evil. But then and plus I have to say, Peter's mom, whoo, what a beautiful woman. All right, so we got this Baby Groot opening dance fight sequence where Peter and Gamora and Drax and Rocket are all fighting in the background, and Groot's dancing around. So we get another funny opening. So it's kind of like a sweet, endearing opening that leads into a funny dance sequence over a pop culture song. Like a poppy song, should I say. And then after that, we find out they were hired by the Sovereign to collect these batteries. And of course, Rocket has to be a dick and steal some. And what they get from returning the batteries is not money, but Nebula. They want Nebula, which I thought was great. So they bring her on board. And the Sovereign are some egotistical sons of bitches. They have this planet where they think they're perfect in every way, and that they won't risk their own lives for any reason, even in battle, no matter what. They're too perfect to die. They're too perfect to be hurt. They're too perfect for such things. And they're actually all born for a specific purpose, which, I've seen that done in plenty of movies where that happens in Man of Steel. I've seen that in plenty of things where each person has a purpose for why they're born. They're genetically tailored to perform that task. And so, yeah. And I already said all that bullshit. So they're running from the Sovereign because they're coming after him in these like video game drone little ships. And so Rocket and Peter are fighting over the control stick, trying to be the one to pilot, because yet again, the Guardians of the Galaxy can't get along. And Ego comes in, or as Rocket calls him, some guy. It's just a guy, or a guy, I think. It's freaking funny the way he says it. Ego comes in and saves them. And then we cut to this scene where Yondu goes to a robot whorehouse where Howard the Duck is. I had mentioned that I didn't think he was in any other ones, but he does make another return here. So I would love to see Howard the Duck actually have a little bit of a role in the next movie. That would be really freaking cool. But yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen. There's just going to be little cameos, much like David Hasselhoff's cameos. Although David Hasselhoff has, a lot of mentions in this, and he does get some screen time in here for comedic purposes. And he also has, like, the 4K Blu-ray came with that Disco Inferno, whatever the hell, poster. They did a music video with David Hasselhoff, so... David Hasselhoff. I feel like he's very much embraced the punchline he has become, which is fine. I mean, good for him. He was very, very popular in Germany for a while, so I'm sure he can take the blows, right? Because he's had his ego inflated by the Germans so much that he probably isn't. He probably takes it as positives that people make so much fun of him. Which, yeah, good. That's cool. Good for him. And Yondu just kind of feels like at a loss for meaning in this movie. And I feel like on second watch, well, this is like my fifth watch now, but I feel like on multiple viewings, I think that they really kind of foreshadow his death pretty obviously, but I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, with the Ravagers coming in and saying that, he's not going to have a Ravager funeral, and him seeking purpose in life, and then, them talking about how he betrayed Peter and all this. It's like, it's very obvious, but as I said, I didn't notice it the first time, probably because I was in denial, because I love Yondu, and man, every time he dies in this movie and they have his moments and he flies them up there and he has his funeral and all that, I'm like just this close to letting some tears out. It's bummer. And so, yeah, Stallone. We get Stallone in this movie too. How cool is that? I'm a huge Stallone fan, so I always love that. And his crew plots mutiny behind his back. Some of them anyway, some don't, and the ones that aren't on the side of the mutiny are flushed out into space, which is such an evil way to die. And it's pretty gruesome too, the way that they show it, and their eyes get all red and their faces get all freaking iced over and blue or whatever. Oh, it looks just horrid. Yondu broke the code. Ravagers, no matter how bad they are, they don't deal with kids. They don't take kids, and I like that code, so I can appreciate that one. As I think I already mentioned, Ego is Peter's father, clearly, and we find out that he is a god, a planet even. Mantis and Drax, Mantis is a great new character, and her interactions with Drax throughout this film are just hilarious. The way he reacts to Peter's embarrassing moment being let go by Mantis, and when he just keeps berating her with the fact that she's ugly, or at least so he thinks, and just the way he tells her and the way she accepts it and the way that she takes it and all that, it's fucking, and he just sticks throughout the whole movie. He keeps building her up and breaking her down, building her up and breaking. It's so fucking mean and funny. I know that people probably don't think that he gets to do a ton in this movie. I'm now thinking about that right now, that Drax doesn't do a ton of fighting. He's really just there for comedic purposes. And I guess that's true. I mean, when I'm really thinking about it, Drax doesn't really do a whole ton in this movie to be useful outside of comic relief for us, but that's fine. I don't need him to serve a purpose in the story other than to be there for fun. That's fine. That's enough for us. I don't need to break down the movie and be like, well, Drax didn't, pick up his end of things. That's not irrelevant. Not really. Not in this kind of movie. Not with that kind of character. It works. And because, yeah, I mean, the badass of this movie for me is Rocket. The way he takes on all those pirates and with all those traps that he has and whatnot. A lot of Rocket in this movie. And he really, really shows himself to be one hell of a foe to fight against. And yeah, Yondu is finally overthrown by Nebula. Love Nebula. Love Nebula in this movie. I like her arc throughout the entirety of her character in the MCU. And there's a lot of good depth to her character in this film. My favorite line from her by far in this movie is when Yondu is like, this is going to hurt a lot. And she looks at him and goes, promises, promises. I just love the way she delivers that line. I love the way he smiles at it after she says it. It's just, this movie's so well directed. It's so well balanced on humor and action and drama and I don't know, the way that Peter plays off of Ego and their relationship and what he always wanted and the way he talks to Gamora about things. And, even though the Hasselhoff story is there for comedic purposes as well, it's also there to show you at what a place he was throughout his life, dealing with the fact that he never got to know his father and what he used to tell kids growing up, and how that plays into it later of why he would go and give into something like this, because he has to have that moment where he's playing ball with him and all that. And it really sells the character, beliefs and what Ego's trying to sell to him. I completely get it. This guy is coming in. It's like finding out that your dad is a billionaire, and when you've been living on the streets for fucking your whole life, and then you come in and you think like, oh my god, but then you find out that he became a billionaire by selling like sex slaves on the open market or something. It's like, there's got to be a limit at the point. And at first you might want to listen like, well, maybe what happened, but then once it's fucking finally revealed what all went down here, and his big mistake was letting Peter know that he put cancer in his mom's head. And it's like, he did that because he did love her weirdly, and he knew that he went back 3 times to see her, and if he went back a 4th, he would never leave again. And so he had to kill her to stay true to his mission, his purpose. These, making every planet him. Ego is like the perfect name for this guy. And Ego's planet, I mean, I don't want to inflate this guy's ego anymore, but it is gorgeous. Do love the line of when he's telling Peter he's going to be able to manipulate things and create his own planets and whatnot. Peter goes through this list of things and he's like, I'm going to make some weird shit. That's definitely, I can relate to that one. Ego is millions of years old, makes sense for the character. And because he does take on a human form, this is why he ages, and this is why I'm guessing time starts to seem longer, because he says, I searched for you so long, Peter. And it's like, you searched for him for 30 years, 29 years? Like, you've been alive for millions. That's, in comparison, I've been doing this video longer in the span of my life to how long he's been looking for Peter. Like, way longer. So, like when he says that, I guess because it's the human version and he's so eager to get what he's got going on, that's relevant and makes sense. But in this, in comparison, it's not a long time for Ego. And yeah, I mean, the reason he finds out that it's Peter and he tracks him down is because he grabbed an Infinity Stone at the end of the first one. I thought that was good attention there, because that would make sense of how he found him finally. Like, why couldn't he find him before? And it's like, well, when news comes out that a guy can grab an Infinity Stone, a human, a normal person, it's probably your son. And yeah, we already went all through that. Nebula takes the ship, goes after her sister, of course. You can't let this shit go. We find out that Mantis is there just to pretty much help Ego sleep, because his mind is so chaotic and all over the place that she's a slave to him, and she has to stay there at all times just to kind of keep him in line and keep him straight, which that sounds like a really shitty life. Sad to see Baby Groot here being bullied and taken over, because in the first movie, Big Groot, which I've argued that Baby Groot and Big Groot are not the same character. I do think Baby Groot is a new character. I think that Big Groot died and that this is his offspring that came out of a stick being planted, because he has no memory or anything of who he was. Although he does only say, I am Groot, but maybe that's the only thing their race is capable of saying, and it's a language, because Rocket and Peter and everyone can speak it after they've been around him enough. So I don't get that. That makes no sense that I am Groot could be anything specifically like, I'm not boring and, welcome to the fucking Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I am Groot. He says it exactly the same way. I know it's comedic, but it really makes no sense how you could read those 3 words any differently. There's only so much inflection that it can have. But I guess if you can speak Shriwook. All right. And the scene where Baby Groot's bringing Yondu so many different things, and he brings him a toe. Oh shit! Tell me that you have a refrigerator with a bunch of severed toes in it. Yondu's proto hawk, awesome stuff, man. Yondu, when he has that whistle dart out there, just forget it. They make the 700 jumps, which the limit is 15, so they go way overboard on the jumps, and their faces are ah. That's always pretty funny, I have to say. Nebula, we find out, all she ever just wanted was a sister. Poor Nebula. For real, though, poor Nebula. You're immortal, Peter. Yeah, finding out you're immortal, that's something I would love to find out here. Yet again, we deal with immortality, 2 films in a row. We already talked about all that. Yeah, it seems like, is he going to kill the entire galaxy? Is he worse than Thanos? Is he going to take out everything? He said he planted it on thousands of planets. There's, what I can tell in the MCU, there's millions. And there's all sorts of different alternate realities and this and that. So was he only taking out like a freaking, one... I don't know. Like, what was his plan there? The universe? And then the galaxy? He's just going to have a universe to himself? I don't know what he was all taking out there, but Earth or Terran was definitely one of them. And a bunch of people died. And a bunch of creatures on every planet did die from whatever the hell he was doing. I don't know if that's ever addressed. I don't think that's ever brought up again in the MCU. But that's one weird event for sure. And then you've got the oh shit, I'm all over the fucking place. The sovereign attack when Peter's going down or when they're fighting against Ego, and Yondu. We find out Yondu kept Peter to protect him because Yondu finally found out what Ego was doing with all those kids and felt horrid about it, and so kept him. Sovereigns come in and attack at the worst moment imaginable. They get in their big fights, and then you get the really classic line now of "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all," which was so funny in the theater. There's a reason that line really kind of was being repeated a ton during that time. And then we've got Nebula saving Gamora. Get over it. Great moment there because Gamora saves Nebula earlier in the movie. Stan Lee cameo, and in the cameo he's talking about his other cameo where he's the FedEx delivery guy. So interesting, very interesting. Then you get the big Peter versus Ego fight here, and they're flying around. It reminds me of the Man of Steel fight between Zod and Kal-El there, and they're like punching each other, getting the face flying around. And we find out that if Peter kills Ego, that he loses all of his godlike powers, and he's like, "You killed my mom, I don't give a fuck, and you're trying to kill everyone." No. He should have been able to see through that shit instantly. I don't know how many people would give away like every life and let their mother be killed just so that they can have godlike powers. I'm sure they exist, but no way. And then it's when Peter realizes that Yondu was really his father all along, he dies seconds later, so that's a real shame. The Ravager funeral is very pretty, and Gamora tries to make up with Nebula, and Nebula is really just kind of now dedicated to killing Thanos. Peter gets a Zune, which I thought was a pretty funny little joke there. And fucking Drax with her is like I've mentioned it enough, but the Drax Mantis stuff really does get me. And then we got the High Priestess making Adam, which I can assume will be the villain in Volume 3 whenever that happens. We get to see the first glimpses of Teenage Groot, which we get to see more of in Avengers Endgame or Infinity War. And then Stan Lee has so many more stories to tell, which is very true, since there will be plenty more of these motherfuckers. There already is like 5 or 6 past this one, but there will be probably another 30 to 50 of these damn things. I don't think the MCU is going to stop anytime soon. Even if they go for another 10 years at the rate they're going, 3 a year, that's 30. And then you got the TV series on Disney Plus, then they already have like 4 of those lined up. So you're getting a lot more out of the MCU. And for me, since I've loved them all, fucking keep making them. Make 3 a year for the next fucking 30 years. What do I care? As long as they're great and they keep it like this, fine, that's fun. To be a fucking soap opera for us that we can watch, Days of Our Lives for 30 years and it's 1,000 episodes, whatever. As long as it's good, as long as it entertains us. Who am I going to, why would I complain? Anyway, guys, all right, so I think Spider-Man's next, and I'll get to that shit tomorrow. Adios.